profound way that nobody cared about a dead black boy. Calmly and skillfully with Ralph's cleaver, she, she butchered Lamar and put the meat in the freezer. She threw out the pieces one at a time, along with the vegetable pairings and empty toilet paper rolls that made up the rest of the garbage. But she came home one evening and found Ralph eating roasted slices of thigh and loving it. So she couldn't blame him alone. She braced herself for the pain as the glass smashed into her forehead, sloshing vodka onto her scalp. She imagined it numbing her brain as his fingers tightened on the back of her neck. Vodka dripped down her glasses like artificial tears. He dropped the unbroken glass in her lap and used the thumb side of his fist to punch her below her breasts, between the ribs. He had perfect aim and perfect execution. The air rushed from her lungs, muscles too shocked and weakened to draw breath before the next blow came. And the next. Her heart sputtered. Blood pounded on both sides of the locked gate of his hand around the back of her neck. But absolution didn't take nearly as long as it used to. She shoved the coffee table away from her feet and twisted her upper body around enough to grab his crotch and squeeze his balls. "Let's not fight," she mouthed and hissed and croaked, maintaining the pressure on his testicles, watching him resist the urge to wrench himself away. "Let's not," he agreed. As Francine got off the bus in front of the Social Services Child Welfare Division building, she saw Malik flip his cigarette into the street and stroll back to his post by the door. The shattered glass was still held in place with packing tape. And she wondered if they'd ever get the door fixed. It looked like it had been hit by a bullet, but it was only Angelique. Angelique's 6-year-old daughter had decided to take her 3-year-old sister to the bathroom in Macy's. Angelique found Macy's security, and security found the girls. But instead of returning the girls to her, Angelique had been arrested and charged with negligence. Her daughters were driven off somewhere in a government car, while her hands were handcuffed behind her back. Malik had been able to usher Angelique and her husband out of the Social Services office, but when Angelique's husband went to get their car, Angelique had attacked the door with her shoe. Some shoe. What kind of shoe could do that? Francine always wondered, though she knew it wasn't the shoe, but the mother yielding it. "Hey, Francine, what are you doing back here so soon?" Malik opened the door for her. "Weren't you just here on Tuesday?" "Hey, Malik, getting close." Malik, getting close. "They found your baby yet?" "If they had, I'd have been floating in here on a cloud. But I gotta stay on her, you know." "It's a damn shame, Francine, a damn shame," he said, his consolation to almost everyone. After 2 hours, Francine's caseworker, Irene Harris, looked exactly as she had on any number of previous visits. Her hair more salt and pepper, pulled back tight and supplemented with a stick-on bun. Her skin was smooth and wrinkle-free, no makeup, no glasses, no smile. Gray suit with the gray blouse with pearl buttons. Francine liked Francine felt she knew the woman's entire wardrobe. Francine, I told you I'd call you if I found out anything. Irene got up and went to the door of her tiny office, ready to signal in the next problem. But you didn't call me. Francine walked over to the front of the battered black metal desk, her solid-heeled pumps thumping up dust on the well-worn path through the industrial carpet. These things take time, she said. I can't work a miracle because you want one. The swish of her stockings on her thighs was the only noise in the little space, as Francine put her pocketbook on the floor and crossed her legs again. She thought they both looked like they were on their way to church. She was wearing a gray suit, too. But, Miss Harris, it shouldn't take a miracle to know where a child is in your system, she said, trying to sound as if this were an impersonal conversation, something you talk about after reading the newspaper. You all are supposed to be keeping track of children, looking after them and making sure they're being treated right. You have to know where they are in order to do that. You know your case has extenuating circumstances, Irene said, smiling. But you've known about my extenuating circumstances for almost 2 years now. I know you're busy, but I'm one of your cases too. It's not that I'm not working on it, Fancy. Please call me Francine, Fancy said, wondering why she hadn't told the woman to call her Miss Foote. Miss Harris knows too much about me, maybe too much. It's not that I'm not working on it, Francine. I am. I just saw you the other day. It's just that I don't have any answers for you today. Well, why not? What exactly is the problem? What's the last thing that you found out? Irene looked across the tops of the 6 filing cabinets that lined the left wall like sentinels and stared at the pictures of her husband, her parents, her children, her lord. I told you there are 13 4-year-old girls spread out all over the city who could be your daughter. We're trying to find out which one. Francine knew what Miss Harris was looking at, had seen her scan those pictures 100 times. That's what you've been telling me. What I want to know is how. How are you trying to find out? What are you doing now? Voices rose in the waiting room, as loud as an explosion. Irene, waiting for the noise to recede to normal disgruntlement, picked up a stack of mail and opened the first letter. She took the letter out, unfolded it, and put it on the desk. She reached under her desk and threw the envelope away. Then she took up the second envelope. She looked at Francine and smiled, opened the envelope, took out the letter, unfolded it, and laid it on top of the first one. Francine watched her open her mail without reading the contents. She swung her foot restlessly, but her upper body was still. She looked around at the dingy green walls and the dusty hanging plant that never grew because it was plastic. When it was as quiet as could be reasonably expected, Irene began. Listen, Francine, I know it seems like we've been working on this for a long time, and I can assure you that we're doing everything we can. No, I've been working. Francine's hands were on her hips before she was out of the chair. I'm the one who's been working. When I first met you, you told me I couldn't take care of my daughter if I had her. Well, now I can. I've been working my ass off, going to school, working 2 piece of shit jobs, and saving money. I've graduated from C&E school yesterday. Do you remember that? This weekend, I'm moving into a 2-bedroom apartment. Couple of weeks after that, I start my new job. I've given you proof every damn thing you've asked me for. So don't come at me with, we've been working, because you ain't told me nothing new in 17 months. Irene repositioned her standard issue chair with the handmade needlepoint cushion and sat down. The chair squeaked, accepting her weight. Francine sat back. They stared at each other, listening to screams of, "I didn't do it! I didn't do it!" coming from a woman down the hall. A baby in the waiting room started crying. They heard Malik running toward the screams. "Miss Harris, what have you done since Tuesday to find out where my daughter is?" Irene picked up her pen. "Well, what's the next step then? Shit, give me the list, and I'll go see the little girls." "You know I can't do that. Besides, what good would that do? You don't even know what she looks like. Not even what she could look like, not knowing who the father is." Fancy wanted to jump up on the desk and kick Miss Harris right in the face. See that bun go flying off into the corner. She wanted to go through all the files and find the list of little girls and take them all home with her. She wanted to shake the whole city upside down until her baby landed in her lap. She wanted to cry. She took a deep breath and let it out loudly. "Okay, you got your dig in." "I didn't mean..." "Yes, you did. But let's move on. So, what would the next step be?" Her voice was calm, but her feet tapped noiselessly on the brown plaid carpet. "We'd have to get an order for DNA testing signed by the family court judge. But I don't think..." "Call somebody!" Francine shouted, once more on her feet, leaning over the desk. She picked up the telephone receiver and threw it at Irene's pearl buttons. "Call somebody right now! Do your job! Do your damn job now!" Fancy realized she was yelling at the woman whose help she needed. Tried to lower her voice, saw her fists coming down on the desk as the receiver bounced around on its curled cord. She felt the pain, but still she pounded. "Help me, goddamn you, help me! Find my daughter!" By the time Malik got there, she was crying. He picked up her pocketbook and put the strap on her shoulder, ushering her out. "Reservations for Willoughby." "Ah, yes, right this way, sir, madam." "This is a nice place, Joe. Have you been here before?" Francine trailed behind Joe and the maitre d', trying to take in the softly lit wall sconces, thick white carpeting, and dozens of waiters scurrying around with linen towels over their arms. The maitre d' held out the red velvet cushioned chair for her, and she concentrated on positioning her butt just right. Once she was settled, she found Joe watching her. Smiling, she repeated the question. "No, not exactly," he hedged. "This place is under new management. The chef is now the owner, and I figure that's always good. I heard the guys at work talking about it. It's supposed to be really great." He paused and shook his right arm from his shoulder down, like a boxer loosening up. "And I wanted tonight to be special." "Oh, yeah?" "And why is that?" Francine tried to keep her tone light. She reached across the table and pulled his fingers apart, which were entwined with one another, as if in prayer. She put them on the table gently, backed down, and placed her palms over his fingers on her palms. He looked at her and smiled, slid his hands out and onto his lap. "I brought you here to celebrate your graduation. Congratulations again. I'm very proud of you, Francine. Thanks, Joe. That means a lot to me. You know that you're proud of me, Mr. Degreed Up Account Manager. Joe let that pass, knowing how sensitive Francine was about her missteps on the way to maturity. I also brought you here because I want you to remember tonight. Francine wanted to laugh, wanted to stay with the feelings of accomplishment and pride and celebration. Her foot began to dance under the table, but just as quickly stopped. Joe's eyes, deep set and wide apart, shielded behind his unfashionable glasses, looked worried, the shallow tracks outlining his mouth smoothed out slightly, as they did when he was trying to make the best of something he didn't really like. The waiter appeared and presented their menus. They studied them in silence, glancing up at each other with tentative smiles of new friends as their water glasses were filled. Our specials tonight are the young and tender offerings of spring. We offer a spring garden salad, yes, of baby spinach, fennel, and arugula, with lightly toasted sesame seeds, drizzled with a delicate lemon vinaigrette. Yes, and after that, we suggest our own homemade right here today wild mushroom ravioli with our very special olive oil. You may wish to accompany that with our grilled tuna steak in white wine and dill sauce. Or, if you prefer, our most amazing lamb medallions that the chef has just perfected, unlike any lamb you've had before. So tender and flavorful, they are accented only with subtle hints of thyme. What do you think, Francine? Either of those sound good to you? Yes, the lamb sounds very good. I love lamb. Yes, very good. And you, sir? I'll have the grilled tuna, please. Very well, sir. As the waiter left, they both reached for their water. Francine took a sip and then another. Then she studied the tablecloth for as long as she could while Joe sat in silence. I do want to marry you, Joe, she said, but there's something you have to know first. Over dessert, okay? We are having dessert, aren't we? This is such a great place. Let's enjoy the food first. Oh, so you're finally going to tell me, huh? Tell you what? I don't know. Whatever. I know you've got some kind of secret, something that drives you. Francine looked away. She looked at the couple at the table nearest to them. The big blonde woman sat with her back ramrod straight, as if she expected to be photographed at any minute. The man's tie was knotted so tightly that his neck bulged over his collar. She looked at the waiters, noticing that they were all short and white with dark hair, and the busboys, men really, were even shorter with darker skin and darker hair. When she let her gaze flit across Joseph's face again, she saw that he'd let it go for now. The lamb medallions were delicious, as promised, better than any lamb she'd ever tasted. So this is what the rich people eat, she joked, but in the calm, slow blinking of Joe's eyes, she saw the relentless ticking of his clock. After desserts of chocolate mousse for Joe and passion fruit sorbet for her, Francine took several deep breaths, trying to prepare herself. She twirled a miniature goblet of brandy around by its stem. She felt even more upset than she anticipated. She told herself over and over that it wasn't important. If Joseph rejected her because of her daughter, then so be it. But her heart was beating too fast, and her stomach was beginning to hurt. Pinpricks of perspiration made her dress irritate her back, her thighs. She could feel sweat forming on her scalp and wished she could bury both hands in her hair and get a good scratch going. But she could almost feel her mother's glare. Mommy had not allowed any hair touching at the table. Her breathing became shallower, and she forced the words through the tightening noose in her throat. Her words no more than a whisper. Joseph leaned forward, straining to hear without interrupting, giving her his full attention while she told him what he most wanted to know. She was a mother working to reclaim her child, LaShayla. That's what someone, God only knew, who had named her baby girl, had been shifted around so often that the state had lost track of her. She was this close to finding out where she actually was. To be honest, Joe said, I thought it was something like that. What, you did? Come on, Francine, I'm not stupid. I see the way you look at children. I've also noticed that you never ever talk about them. I figured either you had a child somewhere or that something bad had happened to a child of yours. Or else what? Although what didn't seem to matter anymore because Joseph hadn't gotten up and walked out, even though he was too much of a gentleman to do that. In smaller actions, his eyes would have closed somewhat, shutting out what he didn't want to dwell on, and he would have narrowed his beautiful, expressive nostrils, breathing in short bursts. Instead, he was just talking calmly, as he had countless other nights, picking up a subject, a problem, examining it from all sides, proposing a solution, an alternative, a possibility. Or else you knew that you couldn't have children, and so you were working hard to make a career for yourself. You know, be a career woman. But that would have been okay too. I mean, we would have worked it out, just like this, like your daughter LaShayla. We'll work it out. Stop looking so worried. We'll work it out. I love you. Oh, was all she could manage. She hadn't really heard his answer, was just watching his lips move, thinking how much she loved him, how much she hadn't wanted to lose him, his love, his respect. Was that why her insides were quaking? Why didn't you tell me before? You didn't trust me? I didn't trust, was all she could get out before rushing to the ladies' room, bile rising in her throat.